Today on the Inside Scoop, Colin Simmons' instant impact on Texas's 2024 class. Auburn out hunting for more elite recruits before summer comes to an end. But first, we have another huge decision taking place today. Colin Simmons, the number one edge, off the board last week. Today, the number one defensive lineman, Nwaneri, is making his decision. The 5-star plus defensive lineman is he getting ready to shock the world, or will it be one of the conventional SEC powerhouses that land him? Let's bring on national recruiting analyst Sam Spiegelman. Sam, 5-star plus Nwaneri set to commit later today, so I want everybody to do me a favor right now. Like this video, subscribe to the On3 YouTube page. What is the latest intel? Because over the weekend, I saw a new crystal ball from Steve Wiltfong from Missouri. You flipped your pick from Oklahoma to Missouri on Sunday on the recruiting prediction machine. So, Sam, give it to us. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's been a really long, winding recruitment, Josh. You know that as well as anyone. We've talked about Oklahoma kind of being a staple in Williams Nwaneri's recruitment since the tail end of his junior year, and he's been to Oklahoma more than any other school probably besides Missouri. Missouri has fell by the wayside as these out-of-state powerhouses like Oklahoma, then Tennessee, and also Georgia got into the mix. Oregon is another one of the finalists for Nwaneri. But we saw this summer, he got back to Missouri in between trips to Tennessee and Georgia. And since then, Missouri has been a team that's been drawing a lot of buzz, especially after the dead period. It was one of the surprise teams that, we had to dig in a little bit deeper to find out how legitimate Missouri was. But the home state team has really righted the ship. You can credit their Eli Drinkwitz first and foremost, but the defensive coaches and the staff-wide approach, getting Williams Nwaneri back on campus and going toe-to-toe with Tennessee, with Georgia, and really with Oklahoma down the stretch. There's a lot of confidence in Columbia about keeping Williams Nwaneri home.
Is NIL the great equalizer here? I mean, if there was no such thing, take us back 3 years ago, if there was no such thing as NIL right now, do you think Missouri would have a shot to land the number one defensive lineman against programs like a Georgia and an Oklahoma, Tennessee?
Well, it's certainly part of the equation, just as it is for a lot of the same schools that you just mentioned, like Tennessee and Texas A&M, which put together, incredibly talented recruiting classes in the past, with NIL certainly being a component, as it is for universities across the country. But Missouri also has a fantastic reputation of churning out first-round picks along the defensive line, players like Williams Nwaneri that have length, that are explosive off the ball and get after the quarterback, and obviously be a huge asset in the run game. Missouri's done that at one of the highest clips in the country, and under Blake Baker, their defensive coordinator, and under this defensive coaching staff headed by Eli Drinkwitz, it's been part of the production that's also put Missouri back into the mix with Williams Nwaneri.
If Missouri does land Williams Nwaneri today and they prove that they can go out and go head to head with anybody in the country for a number one player in their state, does it make us look a little differently at the Ryan Wingo recruitment, who's also from Missouri? He's a 5-star wide receiver, considering Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, some of the same players, but Missouri's also in there. So if Missouri goes out and lands Williams Nwaneri, do we look at Ryan Wingo's recruitment a little differently moving forward?
Yeah, you can actually see a lot of parallels between Williams Nwaneri's recruitment and another 5-star and Ryan Wingo's recruitment. A lot of out-of-state schools have been at the forefront with Ryan Wingo. Schools like Notre Dame and Tennessee, Michigan. Georgia was also a strong contender this spring, along with Tennessee. And then you saw schools like Texas and Texas A&M both get Wingo on campus this summer. But Missouri has also gotten Ryan Wingo on campus. And again, the production at wide receiver has been a real asset for Missouri in recruiting historically the state of Missouri. But I had a source tell me over the weekend that if Missouri put itself in a good position to land Nwaneri, that there would be even more confidence long-term about their chances of also keeping Ryan Wingo home. So I think today, Josh, will speak a lot of volumes. If they're able to keep an elite defensive lineman like Williams Nwaneri home, beating out schools like Oklahoma and Tennessee and Georgia, then I think that'll give even more confidence about their long-term chances holding off schools like Texas and Tennessee with Wingo.
Yeah, I think this recruitment has a lot of intrigue and maybe some extended implications if it does go Missouri's way. Now, Heading into the weekend, I mean, it was all Oklahoma really for Williams Nwaneri, and it was trending that way. Let's say Oklahoma does land him later today. Do the Sooners have a chance at the D-line Triple Crown? And what I mean by that is 5-star Williams Nwaneri, 5-star defensive lineman David Stone, and 5-star defensive lineman Dominic McKinley. Of course, in order to hit the Triple Crown, you got to get Williams Nwaneri in the boat first. But if they can do that, do you think Oklahoma has a chance at 2 more 5-stars on that D-line?
Yeah, if they're able to hit the home run and get Williams Nwaneri on board first, I really like their chances about not only getting David Stone, but being in that final conversation with Dominic McKinley, who's set to announce in 2 weeks as well. My RPM obviously was on Oklahoma Williams Nwaneri for a good chunk of the spring and parts of the summer. And if this is shaping up to be a 2-team race until the finish. So, there's Oklahoma, Brent Venables, Todd Bates, and Miguel Chavis still have a puncher's chance in this one. But my RPM has shifted from Michigan State to Oklahoma after all the changes in East Lansing this offseason. I think Oklahoma put itself in the driver's seat with David Stone, the 5-star defensive lineman, who's also set to come off the board at the end of August. And the deal with 5-star defensive lineman Dominic McKinley, he's a top priority for schools like LSU, like Texas, like A&M, and for Ohio State. But when a decision is made, people expect it to be Texas, Oklahoma, and Ohio State at the forefront for Dominic McKinley. And Oklahoma might even be in the top 2 when it's all said and done.
All right, let's talk a little bit more David Stone. We talk plenty of Oklahoma when it comes to David Stone, but much like the Williams Nwaneri recruitment, could this one trend away from Oklahoma in the end? And if it does, I think Miami's one of those teams that has kind of been a constant. They've been a name in the background. No matter who's come and gone, you've always kind of heard Miami. And he did take a couple visits this summer, including an official visit to Coral Gables in June. So as it stands right now, how much of a threat is Miami to land David Stone when he announces at the end of the month?
Yeah, I think, again, Mario Cristobal can't be counted out when it comes down to offensive and defensive linemen. David Stone, even though he's originally from Oklahoma City, has been prepping at IMG for the past 3 years. That's been opening the door for Miami to get him on campus. And as contenders like Michigan State have fallen by the wayside, it's just opened up the door for schools like Florida, like Texas A&M, Alabama, and Miami to kind of stay involved in this race.
All right. Another 5-star has set his decision. This is Terry Bussey out of the state of Texas. He's going to announce in early September. Sam, who do you think the early favorite is right now to land him?
Yeah, my RPM has been locked and loaded on the Texas A&M. Texas A&M has been at the forefront with Terry Bussey for the bulk of his recruitment, even before it went national. We know this spring he started to venture a little bit out of state, and this summer he took OVs to Texas, to Oklahoma, and in between he's taken visits to LSU. And there's a chance that he's back in Baton Rouge, back in Tuscaloosa in September for official visits. A&M is also working very hard to get him back on campus this fall before his September 28th decision. We know that A&M just had him on campus at the end of July after the dead period. It's shaping up to be a 2-team race. I think LSU is trying to keep pace with the Aggies, and we'll see how it goes until the end of September.
All right. Well, very exciting stuff. Sam Spiegelman, thank you for stopping by the Inside Scoop on Williams Nwaneri Decision Day. Texas lands Colin Simmons, and the implications from this pickup could impact other top targets on the Longhorn recruiting board. Let's bring on Gerry Hamilton of Inside Texas. And Gerry, you were on 4 days before the decision last Monday, and we spoke. You, at the time, didn't even want to put in a pick. I said, who would you put your pick in now if you could? And you go, right now, I wouldn't even put one in. But Colin himself said that decision came 2 days before the ceremony. Gerry, how was Texas able to win out for Colin Simmons?
I think there were two things that were always key in this recruitment, and that was close to home and playing in the SEC. And those have never changed. So, look, the reality is with Texas moving to the SEC, that gave them a legit chance. I don't think they'd have been one of the finalists if they were still in the Big 12. So that hurdle was a big one for Texas. But then really close to home. Look, Colin is the closest to his mom and little brother. And if the family wants to stay in the DFW area, stay in the state of Texas, then the University of Texas is going to be his pick. And I think that is, at the end of the day, you sit around, Josh, and you have this circle, and you sit around at this table, and you talk about that decision. You have grandparents, you have aunts and uncles, you have trainers, everybody involved. And then when that table breaks up, you go sit down on the couch, and you're sitting there talking to your mom, right? A lot of the time, or your dad in these recruitments. With Colin, it was his mom and little brother. And I think, the family likes living in Texas, likes the Dallas area. And I think all that led to him going to Texas. Now, talking to the mom, Monica, after Colin committed, she spoke so highly of Steve Sarkisian, her relationship with Steve Sarkisian. So while the family wanted to stay close to Dallas, you also have to give credit to a coaching staff for having great relationships throughout the process. And what Monica said was Coach Sarkisian had a great relationship not only with Colin, but with her. And I think when it's coming down to one of those family decisions, whether you're going to stay really close to home or maybe go 6 hours from home, those relationships really matter. So I think those are really the key factors coming down the stretch. It was close to home. It was SEC. And Steve Sarkisian and staff did a really good job with Colin's mom.
Yeah, it's crazy how exciting it still was down the stretch, because for the last 2 years, everybody's known that it was probably going to be LSU and Texas in the end. And then everybody also knew that in the end, it was probably going to be Texas. But in those last moments before he committed, I think people were genuinely just on the fence on where he was going. And he did a phenomenal job of keeping everybody kind of on their toes. So Collins also said that he wants to build the best class in America around him. Gerry, who do you think he's referencing when he says that? And are there any recruits, any top recruits with ties to Colin Simmons, good friends such as that?
Well, I think he's become close with Kobe Black. I mean, they visited Texas together. I think that's another 5-star guy that I'm sure Collins turned his attention to and is considered a Texas lean over Texas A&M. And he released, I think, a Final Five the other day. But Texas A&M, close to home. That's one of those recruitments similar to Colin Simmons, I think. So he's one off the top of my head. Then you kind of look. You have some guys with decisions coming up. Wardell Mack, defensive back out of Marrero, Dominic McKinley is committing September 1st. I think Dominic's different. He's more of a removed kid from the text groups and things like that. But if you're looking at one guy in Texas, it's probably Kobe Black, the corner out of Waco Colony, the 5-star who plays on the same side of the ball as Colin.
Yeah, hey, 5 stars bring on other 5 stars. So now that Colin Simmons is on board, what would you say is the most important need still left to fill? Is it still in the trenches, or does now Texas need to add some skill?
Yeah, I think corner. Defensive back is a big one for them. They'd love to add another defensive lineman, but there's only one guy left on the board in the interior, Dominic McKinley. But then the edge position with Colin, Josh, I mean, that's a big one. Zenu Meozulu, who Colin's also friendly with, the younger brother of Neto Meozulu. But that edge position is one as well. Wide receiver may take a little longer to play out. 5-star Ryan Wingo, this one may play out a little longer. Ryan Wingo will be back in Austin September 17th for the Wyoming game. The same weekend, Danny Okoye, another edge prospect Texas is after, is making a visit to Texas. So the positions are corner, edge, and then probably that last defensive tackle spot. So it's really defensive focus now, knowing the offensive guy, the wide receiver position will take a little longer to play out.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk a little bit about Ryan Wingo, who you just hit on. We talked a lot about him in June when he took his official visit to Texas. And you had said at that time that, hey, now that Texas was able to get him on campus, they have a puncher's chance. Well, then that goes into July, and now we're in August, and it seems like the buzz around Texas and Wingo has consistently kind of got louder and louder. Would you now say that Texas is a main player for Ryan Wingo rather than just a puncher's chance here?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think Ryan Wingo in Texas, that's absolutely true, Josh. That's accurate. And I think Tennessee is, and I think Missouri is right now. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure on Missouri to keep those guys in state, and they've had some success in that over the years. I mean, Doro Green Beckham and a couple of those other highly ranked 5-star wide receivers. But look, Ryan's going to be at Texas the 17th. He's going to be at Tennessee September 30th, based on our intel. So look, those are the 3 teams right now that seem to have gone forward in this process, ascended with Texas A&M, Michigan, Georgia, some others still there. But yeah, Texas very much has a chance here. I think there's a great relationship with Steve Sarkisian. I think Chris Jackson has done a good job building relationships since he was hired. And then I think Arch Manning's involved in this recruitment. And then that can never be underestimated because that means Texas has a pretty good read on this recruitment based on intel we've heard.
Well, Ryan Wingo has remained in the conversation since his official visit. How about Brandon Baker, one of the top offensive tackles in America, out of California? What has things been like since he visited Austin in June?
Yeah, I think the Baker and Baker's family in Texas very close. I think Texas has done a really good job there with the family and Brandon. I think what's interesting about his recruitment is he has that September 16th official visit scheduled to Nebraska. So Texas is trying to get him back on campus during the season. Currently, his teammate DeAndre Carter is scheduled to be in for the Kansas game September 30th. So we'll see if Texas may be able to get Baker back on campus if DeAndre Carter remains uncommitted at that time. But yeah, and then you have Oregon. What the move to the Big Ten? Does that shake things up again? Because Oregon was a big favorite, and then they were kind of more fighting. They were more fighting with Ohio State and Texas at one point. But I believe right now it's those four schools. It's Texas, it's Oregon, it's Ohio State, and it's Nebraska. And I think the family really likes Texas. And look, the family is the mom is related to the Akana family, who have a son and daughter at University of Texas, one playing football, one playing volleyball.
Well, there's some potential on the board still for the Longhorns. So as we see it right now in about mid-August, Texas currently has the 17th ranked class in America. Did the addition of Colin Simmons put them on track to finish with the top 10 class? And what do you think is needed for a top 5 finish?
Yeah, I think absolutely it did. I mean, that's kind of the bell cow, that momentum, that was slower to develop versus last year when Arch Manning committed in June, right before big visit weekend. Yeah, I mean, you look, Texas has 5 stars still on the board. They're right there with, we've mentioned them.
Yeah.
Kobe Black, Brandon Baker, Ryan Wingo. Then you have Dominic McKinley, who's deciding September 1st. The reality, Josh, as we know, is if Texas hits on 2 more of those guys, has 3 5 stars, they're going to be in that 5, 6, 7, 8 range. Then it becomes how big does your class get? I think Texas has signed 25 guys. So if they hit on 3 5 stars with a 25-man class with what's left, guys like Wardell Mack as possibilities and some others, then they're going to be right there knocking on the door for a 3rd straight top 5 class.
Well, we'll see what Texas can do between now and early signing day, which is only about 4 months away, but we have the whole season to go still. Lots of twists and turns to come. Gerry, thanks for stopping by today on the Inside Scoop.
You got it.
Auburn landed another commitment over the weekend, staying hot on the recruiting trail as summer goes on. The Tigers added IMG Academy 4-star TJ Lindsey, defensive lineman, the 30th ranked defensive lineman in America. Auburn this time beat out Texas and Miami. They now have a total of 16 commitments as we're just about out of the summer recruiting months. Let's bring on Jeffrey Lee of Auburn Live. And we're going to talk about the big man Cam Franklin trending to Auburn here in a minute. But I want to go back out to California real quick and see if things are still all good with 4-star offensive lineman DeAndre Carter out of Mater Dei High School. Now, he took an official visit in June, and back then you told me, well, after he came back on his own dime to Big Cat Weekend in the end of July, you told me that you thought DeAndre was on potential commit watch. A few weeks later, has the visit high worn off? Where do things stand between Auburn and DeAndre Carter?
I think they stand the same. In this day and age, Josh, you know as well as I do, everybody wants their moment when it comes to the commitment. As far as I'm concerned, it's more of that he wants to get family together. He wants to have a ceremony with family and friends, and that's kind of the logistics of it all. Is basically what we're waiting on. I still have a lot of confidence in Auburn's chances with Carter right now. I think it's just a logistics of when and where he wants to announce it. And listen, I think it'll be soon. I think it'll be maybe first week of September at the very latest. But as of right now, I don't think there's any reason for Auburn fans to be concerned.
Who's the biggest competition in Auburn's direction for when it comes to Carter?
Got to be Texas. I know Michigan State is in there as well, but I think Texas is going to be Auburn's thorn in the thumb, if you will, if there is going to be one.
All right, let's get to the big man, Cam Franklin. Auburn fans, do me a favor, though. Like this video and subscribe to the On3 YouTube page. We just crossed over 100,000 subscribers. Thank you very much. And if you're not subscribed yet, do it right now. All right, Cam Franklin goes 6'5", 260 pounds, and he is making his decision this Saturday, August 19th. You heard a lot about Tennessee throughout his recruitment, Miami, even some Ole Miss. But as we get down to it, Auburn is trending late when it matters at 59% on the RPM, the recruiting prediction machine. How should Auburn fans feel about this recruitment as we're just under a week until he announces?
Cautiously optimistic. I think it's the best way to put it. I think Auburn is in a very good spot. I don't think they would trade places with Tennessee, with Miami, with Ole Miss. I don't think they would trade spots with them at any point right now. You know, that visit right before the dead period kicked in, that last week of July, really played a big factor in Kamarion's recruitment. Jeremy Garrett, Hugh Freeze, both of those guys from the state of Mississippi, they've got ties. They've got really strong bonds with Cam. And so I think that's really paying off for Auburn as we get near the decision. So I think right now Auburn is the team to beat. But, Josh, we've seen things like this happen before, and we know things can change late. But as of today, I do like where Auburn sits.
What has Auburn done well in the recruitment for Cam Franklin?
Relationships. And I think it's been very important to him. Jeremy Garrett has been very important to him. They have, he talked about us coming from the same, area. They get each other. They vibe well. And Hugh Freeze is the same way, man. Hugh Freeze has taken we've talked about some of these bigger recruits, these top recruits that Auburn is in on. Hugh Freeze has been instrumental in recruiting them, all of them, to be honest with you, including Cam Franklin. So those relationships with those two coaches and the opportunity to play early, certainly big factors there for Cam Franklin.
Yeah, 6'5", 260. These big men are coming off the board, and there's just not a lot of high-quality big men like a Cam Franklin available, so it's no secret why he's such a priority. Speaking of priorities, let's head down to South Florida, where four-star safety Zaquan Patterson is a priority for Auburn. We've talked a lot about him on the Inside Scoop with you, Jeffrey. He's expected to make his decision in about a week from now. It seems to me, even though Miami's trending heavily on the recruiting prediction machine, it seems to me that this is a two-team race between Auburn and Miami as we're about a week out.
Yeah, I think so too. I wouldn't discount Michigan completely yet. Patterson came to Auburn's Big Cat event in July, last Saturday of July. He left there and immediately flew to Michigan. I think Michigan is in this, but Auburn has positioned itself very well with Patterson. He's been to Auburn several times for a guy from South Florida. He's been to Auburn games before. He's been to Auburn camp since he was little, so he's very familiar with Auburn for a kid from the Miami area. Zach Etheridge has been big with him. Hugh Freeze is another one. This is one of those guys, especially after missing on KJ Bolden. This is probably the next man up at safety.
All right. So what do you think? I mean, this comes down to Auburn and Miami. Do you like Auburn's chances despite what the recruiting prediction machine shows, which is Miami with a 91% lead?
I wouldn't say I don't like it or like it. I mean, I'm kind of 50-50 with him. I really don't know which way he's leaning. I think Auburn has made him a high priority. I really do. When Hugh Freeze and these guys make recruits high priorities, most of the time they've won out so far. So I would not count out Auburn with Zaquan Patterson when Auburn got their claws in him, and they certainly do.
All right, well, some big decisions getting made, and as we head out of summer, Auburn sits with 16 commitments, not over halfway full in the 2024 class. So at this point, as we head out of summer, what would you say is Auburn's most important need still left to fill?
Still left to fill offensive line. There is no one committed right now. Auburn is going to – now, they had a big class. They had a big offensive line class in 2023. But, I think they signed 9 offensive linemen, but 4 of those were transfers. Another one was a junior college kid. So they added 4 high school kids last year. And then of those transfers, of course, Dylan Wade's got 3 years remaining. Muskrat's got 2, and Xavion Miller, the JUCO, has 2 remaining. So But long term, and you've got to refill the stock. You've got to stock up on these offensive linemen, and it's a major need. DeAndre Carter obviously could be the first domino, but other than him, Auburn's going to have – and I'm expecting 3 to 4 here. But other than that, Auburn's probably going to have to flip some kids because most of the top targets are already committed elsewhere. So I think offensive line, you got to keep that. That was the downfall of Gus Malzahn, not being able to restock that cupboard every year with high school talent and depending too much on transfer portal and junior colleges. And when they get there and don't work out, you have nobody behind them to develop. So I think offensive line is absolutely the biggest need remaining in this class.
All right, Jeffrey. Well, there's a lot to be excited about if you're an Auburn fan. Recruiting is hot and the season is about to get started. Auburn Live has you guys covered with all the most recent recruiting developments and everything going on within the team. Jeffrey Lee, thank you for stopping by today on the Inside Scoop.
Absolutely, Josh. Thanks so much for having me, man.
Yep, see ya.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.